Vernon sat at the kitchen table long after the couple had left, his fingers gripping a coffee mug that had gone cold hours ago. The silence in his home felt oppressive, almost unfamiliar. He had imagined this moment so many times, coming back from Afghanistan, stepping into his house, breathing in the comfort of a space that was entirely his. Instead, his house had felt like a stranger's. The remnants of the squatter's presence lingered in every corner. The faint scent of mildew and unwashed clothes clung to the furniture, the once welcoming space now a mess of discarded blankets and hastily packed belongings. The living room, where he had pictured himself relaxing after months in the desert, was a wreck. His old coffee table had been scratched and covered in cigarette burns. His bookshelf was knocked over, the books he had carefully collected over the years now scattered across the floor, some with pages torn or stained. He hadn't even gone upstairs yet. He wasn't ready to face what they might have done to his bedroom. The anger was still there, simmering just beneath the surface. But something else gnawed at him, a deep, bone-weary exhaustion. He had spent so many nights overseas longing for the moment he could return to normal life, only to come home and realize that normal no longer existed. He had seen too much, been through too much, and now even the one place that was supposed to be his refuge had been tainted. With a heavy sigh, Vernon pushed himself up from the table and grabbed a garbage bag from under the sink. He needed to start somewhere, and cleaning up the mess felt like the first step toward reclaiming his home. He started with the kitchen, tossing out expired food, scrubbing the counters until they no longer felt like they belonged to someone else. The rhythmic motion of wiping down surfaces and sweeping away the filth allowed him to think, to process. He thought about Tom and Sarah, about their ragged clothes and the haunted look in their eyes. He had spent years in a war zone, witnessing devastation beyond what most people could comprehend, and yet the sight of those two, huddled together on his deck, had stirred something in him. He could have called the cops. He should have, but he hadn't. The military had taught him discipline, taught him how to make split-second decisions under pressure, but what it hadn't prepared him for was the emotional weight of coming home to a world that had moved on without him. And maybe that's why he hadn't thrown them out immediately, because in some small way he understood what it felt like to be lost. By the time he finished the kitchen, exhaustion weighed down his limbs, but he forced himself to move on. The living room was next. He picked up the books, stacking them neatly on the coffee table, though some were too damaged to salvage. The couch cushions were filthy, but a deep clean would fix that. As he worked, the house began to feel a little more like his own again, the layers of filth peeling away to reveal the home he had once loved. It was close to midnight when he finally made his way upstairs, his stomach knotting with dread as he opened the door to his bedroom. The bed, the one place that was supposed to offer him comfort, was stripped bare. The mattress had stains on it that he didn't want to think too hard about. His closet was open and some of his clothes were missing, probably sold or traded for whatever scraps Tom and Sarah could get. Vernon clenched his jaw, staring at the wreckage of what was supposed to be his safe haven. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he grabbed fresh sheets from the hall closet, covered the mattress, and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the blank walls. It would take time to fix everything, longer than he had anticipated, but he would do it, because this was his home and no one, not even the squatters, could take that away from him. The next morning, Vernon woke to a dull ache in his muscles from the hours of cleaning, but his mind was clearer than it had been the day before. He brewed a fresh pot of coffee, savoring the bitter scent as it filled the air. It was the first time the house had smelled like home since he returned. He grabbed his phone, hesitating for only a moment before dialing a number he hadn't called in years. "Hey, Ma," he said when the line clicked. "Yeah, I'm back. No, I didn't tell you sooner because I wanted to surprise you." He exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. "Look, I could use some help. The house, it's a mess. I had some uninvited guests while I was gone." His mother's concerned voice was like a balm to his raw nerves. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Of course I'll come over. Do you need me to bring anything?" He almost said no. He almost told her he had it under control. But then he looked around at the work still ahead of him and decided that, for once, he didn't have to do everything alone. "Yeah," he admitted. "If you have some extra cleaning supplies, that'd be great." An hour later, his mother arrived, stepping into the house with a sharp intake of breath. "Oh, Vernon," she murmured, reaching out to squeeze his arm. "I can't believe this." "Me neither," he muttered. Together, they tackled the rest of the cleaning. His mother scrubbed the baseboards while he focused on fixing what he could, the broken window locks, the wobbly doorknob on the back door. The work was tedious, but having someone there with him, someone who cared, made it easier. That evening, after his mother left, Vernon sat on the back porch with a beer in hand, staring out at the yard. It was still a mess, but it was his mess now. He thought about Tom and Sarah, about the desperation in their voices. He wasn't naive. He knew that people took advantage of kindness all the time, but something about their story had stuck with him. The next day, he drove into town and stopped by the shelter. He wasn't sure what he was looking for, but when he saw Sarah sitting on a bench outside, head bowed, he knew. She looked up as he approached, her eyes widening in recognition. "You came," Vernon nodded. "I'm not here to fix everything for you," he said gruffly, "but if you and Tom really want to get back on your feet, I might know someone who can help." Her lips parted in shock, and for the first time he saw something in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Hope. Vernon knew he couldn't change the past. He couldn't erase the anger or frustration he had felt coming home to a broken house, but maybe, just maybe, he could make sure something good came out of it. And for the first time since stepping off that plane, he felt like he was finally home.